So hello, my name is Lisa Kirby, and we have the beautiful, beautiful Shannon Morse here. We're from thegreendoorlife. We're the co-founders, and we wear about 5 million hats right now, really, to be honest. That's something we're going to talk about today. This is our second podcast episode. We're so stoked to have the time and space to be able to do this. And it's fun for us to connect outside of just talking about business stuff 24/7. So hi, Shannon. What are we talking about today?
Hi, Lisa, and everyone who's joining in on the Elevated Frequency podcast. This is our number 2. And coming at you today, we are going to be covering some of the very basics of the information that we share inside of our nutrition programs with our community, what we implement for ourselves, which is all around nutrition, and using that as like our baseline of really setting up our foundational frequency in our body, that we get to move from that place and just expand and be the high performing optimum engines that we love to be. And then second, we're going to talk about what it's like going from solopreneur to partners. And for all of the coaches out there who have been doing their own thing, whether it's through art or performing or running their own business, and they've been doing it on their own, and they're like, wait a second, maybe I don't want to do it on my own anymore. What it's like to transition. So we're really excited about both of these topics, but this is what you have to look forward to on this second podcast edition. So Lisa, do you want to start us out with the nutrition?
Yes. And I love this theme. I'm just laughing at the synchronicities internally. Second podcast, we're talking about balancing. Like I'm just seeing a lot of twos, and I pulled a bunch of 2 tarot cards this morning, like the Lovers and the 2 of Wands.
And it's the 22nd.
Okay. This is our life.
Right.
Oh, I love it. So really, one of like the most beautiful parts of learning about nutrition and learning how to, what does it really mean to eat a balanced meal? When I came into this space, I was so hyper-focused on just like food quality and really like obsessive about everything needs to be organic and, super clean. And I was all into Whole30. And I had no idea that even though I was focused on that, my intake was all over the place and very erratic and not in balance. And so, yes, food quality is important, but food quantity is also important throughout your day, and then also at the meal level. And so there's a way that you can manipulate your portion sizes for each macronutrient, proteins, fats, and carbs, in a way that gives you maximum energy in these little like drip feed buckets throughout the day. And one of my favorite Shannon analogies ever in terms of thinking about how we eat and how we fuel, especially for women, it's super important, is when you go to water your lawn. Let's leave out the drought factor, but just in general, if you're like watering your lawn, you're not going to take your hose and dump this like massive amounts of water on the grass. It's going to kill the grass. Like it's too much. It's too much. So that always stood out to me in terms of a visual of what the primary focus is when you're fueling your body with food. And this is so different than what we hear nowadays with intermittent fasting and just have like 2 massive meals a day. This was such an aha moment and a huge breakthrough for me. And so when we think about the basic tenets of putting together a balanced meal, the first thing that I look at is protein. It is the number one. And now that we've been tracking food for so long and we understand exactly what is in the food that we're eating, it's easy for me now. But when I first started, I was like, whoa, okay, I am not getting enough protein and I'm getting way too much fat. And I am stacking all of my calories at 6 p.m. and later. And so that shift alone of starting my day with protein was huge.
Oh, yeah.
Your body needs those essential amino acids. Like when you wake up, it cannot make them on their own. So that was really the aha moment. And for anyone who doesn't know or isn't into this nutrition space in detail yet, you can use Google search or download like a food logging app like MyFitnessPal and look up what you think is protein and then see how much is actually in it. So Shan, from your perspective, what is like something in terms of the grams that would be like high in protein from your opinion?
Like high as in a good kind of high?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, when I'm looking for protein, I want 25 to 30 grams. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, yeah, sweet spot. And of
Yeah.
course, that's for me, but I would pretty much estimate that for the majority of humans, that's a really great goal to shoot for right away. And I'm kind of laughing. I wanted to just also add that when we're talking about this whole analogy with watering the lawn with essentially like a fire hose, as opposed to a sprinkler system, when you have a sprinkler system, you're allowing your body to absorb the nutrients at a rate that it can actually apply, right? You're not just dousing it. And the same thing absolutely goes with when we're talking about food combining and pairing things together. And when we talk about this whole sprinkler system analogy, and when we talk about protein, it's really because the protein helps to slow the digestion of carbohydrates, and so does fat. But we get a lot of fat in our diets, and fat is so calorically dense. And so really the reason why we focus on protein predominantly as a start to this topic is because most of us really aren't getting enough protein, especially if we're active, especially if we have goals for muscle mass gain or body fat loss. There are so many incredible benefits to eating more protein, and it doesn't have to be animal based. It can totally be vegetarian protein. But just like you're saying, Lise, use an app or look it up on Google. And when you're like, oh, that's got protein in it. And then you look it up and you're like, shit, like 5 grams. Wait, you said 25 grams? And you're like, well, that's not enough, which is a big thing about like general protein bars now. Because I'm always like, I always go in the store, and I know you do too. And I look through all the protein bars. I'm like looking at the back and I'm like, that's 12 grams. That's not even a protein bar. Like, I want, like, give me the 25 to 30 gram protein bars, because this is not it. And then people see the packaging, high protein, and oh my gosh, such a tangent. But on top of this, in order for them to say high protein, there actually isn't like a regulated standard for what high protein is. So all of these different packaging and brandings can put high in fiber, high in protein, like high in this, or a good source of that, or low fat, but you're like, but what else? And what is that high? And how does it relate to me as an individual? And that really is like the beauty around understanding what your body can absorb at one time in terms of how much water your grass really needs. Yeah. So, but at least to your point about that, okay, because we've had a few clients starting up recently who are doing exactly what you're talking about. They're basically hoarding their calories for the end of the day. So, I mean, we obviously know how it feels to do that, but so we can really speak to the people that might be doing this. How did it feel for you to do that on a daily basis?
Oh man, it's a challenging cycle to break, because when you stack your calories at night, you wake up and you're not hungry. I get it. You're literally still digesting from the night prior. And if you have a little alcohol in there, guess what else is extending your digestion? Oh gosh, when I think back to that, I was just felt like crap 24/7. And I was just like, oh, this is just part of aging. This is just like how you feel. So anytime you have alcohol in the mix, all of your food digestion just kind of gets like set aside if it's happening at the same time. So it was like the alcohol, and then the food would come in later. And then it was like, I would wake up and I was not hungry at all. So I wasn't going to force myself to eat breakfast. Then I would slam coffee, go and crush like a 2-hour workout at the gym, try not to collapse, and maybe have my first meal at like, I don't know, 1 or 2. And what's crazy nowadays is like, that's normal. That's like, intermittent fasting is so heavily pushed and marketed right now. And unfortunately, the impact on women is worse. Certain men and types of bodies can handle it, but for women, it's really not good in the long run, because we don't have enough testosterone to protect our muscle mass to go through these like extended fasts. And I'm not talking about like once in a blue moon for, religious reasons or whatnot. This is like people who are doing it regularly, and we know women who are doing it regularly, and we're just like, oh, there's a better way. But making that shift, it requires a leap of faith. I will say that, because you have to trust your body, trust the process, and trust. My biggest fear was if I start eating breakfast and start eating during the day, I don't trust myself to eat in moderation at night.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie, it has taken me probably at least a year, if not 2 years, to really build that trust, because I've been doing it for way longer,
Right.
like 20 years of skipping breakfast and lunch and just stacking all my calories at night. But once I really solidified and made that shift, it is like, there's not a day goes by that I don't think about how happy, like I could cry. I'm so happy that I have found peace with food and I have a good relationship with food. It's the best, really.
It's the best. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much to say. What I love about this and what we talked about in our first podcast, which is perfect, is that everything that we're kind of sharing is something that we've gone through. Either Lisa has gone through it or I've gone through it, so this is another segue into like balancing with having a partnership, but we'll get to that in a moment. But inside of this too, by the way, if you are watching live and you guys can like comment, we're not sure how this works exactly yet, but please give yourself like a hands up or like give us some sort of emoji if you also skip breakfast, kind of feel like shit, feel like you're really grinding through your workouts and you need like a rock star or you need some sort of like boost of energy to get through those. And then you want to have all of your calories at night and you feel like you're really craving carbs at night. Just, you are not alone. And what I will say about this as well is that when the general population is going and introducing intermittent fasting, it's usually not with necessarily the intention of how intermittent fasting was designed. And the design of intermittent fasting is also to still be conscious of your intake when you are taking in food. It's not a free all. It's not a catch all within your, whatever your feeding windows might be. It's not like, oh, great, I'm going to start eating at 12 and I'll finish at 8. And in that time period, I'm going to eat whatever the hell I want. That's not how it's designed. So intermittent fasting can be really beneficial for certain individuals. However, with women, it can really cause havoc on our hormones. So might not be the best option. If you find yourself hangry and that your emotions are a little bit going awry, if you're trying intermittent fasting in a female, could be the reason. Maybe think about having breakfast with protein. However, for some males, it can be absolutely life-changing as long as they are also keeping into mind that caloric and macronutrient balance during the feeding window. But for most individuals that do apply intermittent fasting, they're doing the catch-all feeding window, which in that sense, you're still running up against basically overloading your lawn with the fire hose because your body's not going to be able to metabolize and absorb all of that nutrition at the same time. And this is really what we're supporting our members and our clients to understand inside of the Green Door Life, which is each individual really has this lovely little blueprint of how much they can actually absorb with protein, carbohydrates, and fats at one time. And it doesn't matter how healthy or unhealthy it is.
Yep.
And I have this like amazing personal life experience. Thank you, Mom, for feeding me such healthy things growing up. But my mom also fed us carrot juice, like carrot, beet, and celery juice growing up. And of course, that's healthy. And also, it was a lot. It was a lot for like an 8-year-old, for a 9-year-old, for a 10-year-old, however long this went on for. And I'm sure my young mind thinks that it was like a 10-year period, but it probably wasn't. It just felt like a long time. But what I did notice is that the color of my skin was not the same color as everyone else's. And not because I was olive skinned, but because I was orange. And that's because of the beta carotene and how many carrots we were consuming. So when we talk about having an excess, it doesn't necessarily have to show up like it's an excess in the fat that you're carrying on your body. But sometimes the excess can also be nutrient excess, which can then inhibit your body from both absorbing certain nutrients that you might need with an efficiency, but also prevent you from actually having the balance that you need sometimes excess of certain nutrients can cause a lot of problems for us. So really understanding how much your body can absorb, how to combine the foods in the right portions for your specific goals, for your lifestyle, for your energy, for your body is really where this comes into play. So after protein, then Lise, what's the next thing that we look at?
I love this storytelling time. It's so true. It's like, just a quick caveat is like, I remember learning about all this and I'm like, great, I'm going to get all my carbohydrates from fibrous vegetables. And I went off the chain of like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. Like that was all my carb sources. Because again, if you're coming into this from like a diet mindset, you think, oh, if I just do this a little bit more, I'll get results faster. And then I slowly realized over time, okay, that's a hard no, because now I have indigestion and massive bloating. And so spot on, even with vegetables, there's a thing is too many vegetables. Absolutely. So after protein, I would say the next thing I personally look at is fibrous vegetables. So we like to categorize carbohydrates into 3 categories. There's all kinds of ways to identify them. But if you think about it as simple, complex, and fibrous. So carbs that give you quick energy, like honey, some of your more like tropical fruits, complex carbs like oats, quinoa, lentils, all your winter squashes, potatoes, those give you a more extended amount of energy. And then you have your fibrous carbohydrates, which are low calorie, low carbohydrate. They're really there to help you digest, especially if you increase your protein and, have a solid bathroom visit, bowel movements and all of that. So what's cool about fibrous vegetables too, is it can help pull certain things that need to come out of your body, like cruciferous vegetables in particular, when they're prepared properly, can help metabolize estrogen, which too much estrogen is also not good for women or men. So fibrous vegetables to me is a great place to focus on after protein, so that you can add volume to your meal, you can add fiber to your meal, and it's low calories. So it's not going to really have this big caloric impact. And most modern humans, we have to watch what we eat because we're just moving way less than our ancestors. I always like to put in the story of our ancestors walked on average a day, 6 miles minimum. That's about 20,000 steps.
Yeah. And here we are trying to get 10,000 steps.
Exactly. So we have to watch our caloric intake of food if we want to stay healthy and in a physically well body. And so fibrous vegetables would be my next thing to really get that volume and fiber without, the extra calories, really.
Absolutely. And all the beautiful nutrients that you get from those. I love looking at different types of vegetables, especially the ones, actually, I'm finding that the ones that look really weird and kind of almost disgusting have like the coolest nutrients in them.
Yeah. Like, what are some of your favorites right now?
The most recent one is celery root.
Yes.
I really love either sauteing like in a little bit of like olive oil with garlic salt, or roasting and making celery root chips, but it's so unique and it's very low calorie for a root vegetable. And it also has the fiber to help to digest everything. And it's a great source of energy for the carbohydrates that it does have. Yeah. But I think that's like some of the interesting parts of it too, is that especially when you're starting out and you're like, okay, make it simple on yourself. Don't try to be creating these soups where you have to track everything and, figure out like what's in your lasagna, or like, just like do a protein and a carb and a vegetable and, keep it simple. But as you do that, really looking at vegetables and going, even seasonally, you will find that the seasonal vegetables have what we need to survive the elements of the winter, summer, fall. And then when you go into different countries, which, we've talked about this, but I love going to different countries and finding the local fruits and vegetables there, because you'll find that they have incredible medicinal properties. And so, this is TMI, but this is what this podcast is for. But we were recently, a couple of years ago, not recently, we were in Vietnam, and the flight and the pressure of the flight, I was just really having a hard time with just regularity of bowel movements. And I was like, nah, I can't be, this is no, we got to figure this out. because it was like 3 days. It was just too much. So I looked it up. And in Vietnam, I was like, what helps with, bowel movements, like fruit, vegetables, whatever. And the dragon fruit is like incredibly beneficial because it's got this very lovely fiber that helps to move everything through. Sure enough, next morning, I was so happy. And I was like, science is so cool.
Yes.
Nutrition is so cool, and we have these things at our fingertips. And with Google,
I know.
It's like,
I know.
Like I would imagine like as foragers that you would be like sniffing around and like trying different things. But y'all, we have Google now. So you can find out everything you need to know if you have some sort of like ailment or like a skin rash. Like there is probably a vegetable or a fruit or a grain or an oil that can easily help you with that. Anyways, it's my soapbox for that one.
Yes. Don't have to volunteer as Tribune anymore. Like, I'm going to test out this weird plant. And if I die, oh, well. No, it's spot on. I feel like you can find everything and anything. Although sometimes that can be overwhelming, which is why we're here.
Very true. Yes.
We do that stuff.
We do a lot of the experimenting for you, for members. Okay, so let's go into the last like two of the macronutrients, and we're like balancing meals, and then go into our, business side. But so for our third would really be, well, you take it away. What would the third option be?
Third would be complex carbohydrates, and this is where we'll get into this carbohydrates a little deeper on an upcoming podcast, but essentially this is kind of the lever where you really have the greatest impact in terms of manipulating your carb intake for a certain result. If you're in a like targeted fat loss phase, if you're in maintenance, if you're just eating for energy. And so in general, for most of the day, we like to include complex carbohydrates with our meals, because it gives you energy. I mean, the sheer joy of feedback that we get, again, particularly from women, because the most women I know have cut carbs at some point in their life, and men too. But the sheer joy that we hear from our clients of like, I'm eating sourdough bread and I feel amazing. I remember texting Shannon when I first started having complex carbohydrates regularly at my meals, and then specifically before workouts. I was like, I have so much energy, I might explode, and I'm trying not to fist pump on the treadmill right now, like on my run, because I'm so amped up on food. Like, this is insanity. Like, what the hell was I doing before this? And why didn't I figure this out sooner? So complex carbohydrates definitely have a time and place. And then we have certain strategies that we share in our program where you can manipulate them at times, depending on your goal. So we'll get into that more, but yeah.
Awesome. I remember that. And I was like, yeah, girl, welcome to the club. Energy club. The carbs are good for you club.
Yes. Yes.
So good. Okay. And then finally,
the last one.
Finally will be our fat. So, generally I prefer, you can get like a little bit crafty, but I really prefer to have everything else, protein, carbohydrates, vegetables, as lean as possible. And then the fat that I choose to include is usually coming from a healthy source or something that's like, it's like a condiment that I really want or something of that sort. So I'm usually toggling through avocado, some sort of nut or seed, some sort of like oil. I'm getting really into flax oil, really into walnut oil, like cold pressed on salads or whatever it is, because both of those have really unique properties also. So really kind of moving into understanding these different sources of healthy fats. We're looking for healthy and not for the fats that are coming from our things like margarine and your red meats. These will be very hard for your body to break down. They will not provide the healthy fat sources that we need to both metabolize stored body fat, which is really cool. So some of our healthy fats will actually help us to metabolize our stored body fat, also lubricate joints, brain health, like all of these things, protecting our organs. So the fat, however, is very calorically dense, and we'll also get into this in a later podcast as well and dive into fat a little bit more deeply. But so yeah, fat is like the last thing, and it's the smallest thing because it's very dense calorically. So when I think about fat, I'm like, it's like the size of my thumb if it's like oil, or if it's like two thumbs if it's like a combination, if it's like peanut butter, almond butter, avocado, that sort of thing. Then it's two. If it's oil, it's one. That's my personal body's preference. And most of us come with our own serving sizes in our thumbs, in our hands. So you can always like really, you come with your own serving size guide. It is your hand and your palm and your thumb. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Fat is a little bit goes a long way for sure. And
Very.
then I think the only thing I would add there is just looking at processed foods that come in a package, and you can see these more like processed oils that are being used because they're shelf stable. That's kind of stuff you want to stay away from because it's oxidizes not in a good way in your body. So yes, fat, very calorically dense, 9 calories per gram.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an easy way to increase your calories if you're looking to do that.
Yes, right, exactly. So if you want to be in a surplus, yeah, eat more fat and carbs. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's move on to the next topic, and we'll always move into nutrition in more detail. And please, if you guys have certain things or questions, personal or general or broad, go ahead and ask us, give us a DM in Instagram, and then we'll add it to the list. So let's move into the business side of things.
Yes. So
Yes.
in speaking of all things balanced, so I would love to hear from you first, Shan, since you've always really worked for yourself more or less in your adult years. So you've really been doing this solopreneur journey for a very long time. I actually came from the corporate background, and that was very interesting. But how was it for you for so long, kind of navigating all of this on your own?
Mm-hmm. I was just having this conversation with with a friend of ours who is an artist. She's a photographer and she works for herself. She's running her own show, thinking about getting a VA, and really kind of hitting that wall of, I'm tired of doing this on my own. So I will start there because I believe it was probably like truly 5 to 7 years ago where I had been running my own personal training. I had been running my own nutrition thing with a diet doc and then merging into the diet doc lifestyle. And I knew that I was done doing it on my own. I knew that I had an identity that was around really being very independent and having this identity that like, no, I know exactly what I'm doing. And I know exactly how I want it done. And no one else will be able to do this. And that was kept me in a very stuck position. It also kept me exhausted. And it really wasn't that much fun. I mean, it was safe because I could control everything, but it was absolutely exhausting, working so many hours a week. And it wasn't the kind of hours where I felt like I was getting energy from them. I felt like I was just depleted all the time. I was never refilling my cup with anything. And so when Lisa and I got together, I had already attempted to partner with a couple of other people. And not to say that there is anything good or bad about those partnerships. We just weren't the correct match. And I think that that's something really important to share with anyone who is thinking about moving into partnership, is that what Lisa and I have found that is so ridiculously valuable is that we are similar in certain areas and we are different in other areas, but they are almost like equally matched. Our similarities and our differences are equally matched. And so where I have certain strengths, it may be not where Lisa has that strength. And certainly where Lisa has these strengths, I may not have those strengths, but we still tend to have the same moral code or vision about what we want it to look like and how we want to, the efficiency and the excellence of how we want to get it done.
Yes. Mic drop. Yes. The drive. I would say I've never worked with anybody else in my entire adult life who has been able to match or exceed like just the tenacity and drive and work ethic that I've had. And I think that was like first and foremost. I was like, dang, she's still going and I'm still going. And like, we're like, oh man. I mean, we were working when we first launched and started teaming up together. I mean, we were working like most entrepreneurs, like 60, 80-hour weeks sometimes on the weekends, cranking stuff out till like 4 a.m. No joke. And, we're texting each other at like midnight. Yep, we're still up. And so that part was really, I mean, we kind of just knew like we could start moving mountains together because we have that same force. And I think one of the coolest things is that, like what you were saying, Shan, that we like our strengths are complementary. So when I came into this, I was very much like behind the scenes. I don't want to be out in the front at all. Like that terrifies me. I just want to do all like the back end, like systems ops, administrative, everything. And Shannon was already so beautifully comfortable on camera, and because you had to, right? Because it was like, who else is going to do it? It was you. You were doing everything. Yep. And so I came in and I'm like, let me just do all this like back end stuff. So then you can just like shine in the front. And what's so cool now is like, we've been working together for so long that we've like intermeshed and like helped level each other up so that we've expanded and our strengths have broadened. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing this. I'm scared as shit and I'm still going to do it. Okay, fine. It's like part of what you just do. I think the other huge, there's so much to say, but I would say having someone to reflect back with you as you're making business decisions and going through ebbs and flows of like big months and low months, but like having a partner to go through it so you just never feel alone is you can't say enough about that. And I think what's also fascinating is we tend to, in our personal lives, sometimes we have we need to dedicate more time to our personal family or whatever is going on. And so far it's been like ebbing and flowing at different times, which allows us to support each other and still run the company. And I can't imagine like, if you didn't have that backup support, what do you do when you need to spend more time in your personal life? I don't know. Most people probably stop.
Oh yeah. Most people probably stop. That's not what I did.
Because you had to. There's nothing to fall back on.
Yes. And I would say like for both of us, and this is really, oh man, there's so much to say here, but in my experience with coaches who are looking to start out and do their own thing, if they haven't already started to do their own thing, there really are there's many different types of people, but there's also the people who are extremely driven and will just do what it takes, do what's required. And there's certain people that will stop when they either hit overwhelm or they hit, anxiety. Am I doing this right? Too many options. And they don't know which one to choose. They'll just stop. And the thing about our partnership, and if you're someone looking for a partner, I would say that it's really helpful, as with what Lisa and I have found, is that you have someone who is still going to keep going, even when they don't have the immediate answers. And of course, having a partnership allows you to have this other perspective of what the answer could be. And I don't think that would be possible if we didn't both have that intrinsic drive to just keep going. Yeah. And not stopping and figuring it out. But that is some of the things that I've seen with some people who've really wanted to start their own thing or start with a partnership, is that they haven't had that tenacity and resiliency developed yet to really push through those hard, sticky points.
Yes, that was such a huge turning point for me, like coming from, the security of a corporate job and having a paid salary and everything. Like I get it. And I get that works for so many people. I totally understand. They have that security and stability. And if you love your job and you're passionate about it, hell yeah, that's awesome. when I had my human design chart read, it was like, you should not work for anybody else. Like, you will be miserable. It was just straight up facts. I'm like, yes, I know this now. Thank you. I wish I could have saved myself, 15 plus years of just not wanting to work for anyone else. Like you and I both, Shannon, know that like we like to do things our way. And so, yeah, that was a huge thing for me to get over. So anyone out there who's coming from the corporate world and then moving into either work, owning a small business on their own or working with someone else, it's letting go of that comfort of having a paid salary and that security, and releasing that. And then really you're kind of like, sometimes it feels like the ground from under you is gone. But I think, again, being in a partnership, you have each other.
Mm-hmm.
We have each other when there's times that business ebbs and flows, so that we just keep going. So it's like not the end of the world. It's like, yep, there's seasons. This is totally normal. We're in the customer service industry. And how do we like get creative and change what we're doing, or figure out what people need and why are things changing? So it becomes this like, having your own business, and especially having two partners to run the business, is just another container for self-development and growth.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Lisa and I have a deep relationship history now.
Yes, we do.
We've definitely, yeah, I will say this now. We're not trying to sugarcoat it and say that it's all like rainbows and butterflies, because it is not. But that I would say that the growth that we've had as individuals, and just also how we mirror each other. For those of you listening who know anything about like the Enneagram and astrology and human design, and also cards of destiny, Lisa and I are like par and par for so many things. Like I was saying, we're both ones in the Enneagram. We're both generators. We're both queens in the Cards of Destiny series. And then she is a Virgo and I'm an Aquarius. And so you can see that there's like, these similarities. Obviously, all of these personality typings go much deeper than just the initial identification. But inside of that, we've had these moments where when we're hitting those walls or those triggers for ourselves, we, just like with any relationship, you'll have to figure out how your trigger affects the other person's trigger.
Yeah.
And then in those moments, you're going to, especially in the beginning, when it's not a relationship, like a romantic relationship, and it's not just a friendship, it is a business relationship, and some of your income and your security is on the line, that it will provide the opportunity for you to look at how we react to things in a whole different way, and how we push and how we let go, and how we, I think with you, I've definitely learned so much about just going, you know what, it doesn't have to be a certain way. At the end of the day, like, does it really matter? Like, how much do I need to hold on to that thing? Probably not. Like, what is it gonna, and it's taken some time. And then in other areas, I've been able to see like, no, this is actually because I want to, not because I have a fear of it not looking a certain way, just because this makes me happy.
Yes.
And just kind of moving into identifying the difference of those. And so for whoever's listening, they're trying to figure out whether they want to be in a partnership or not. It's incredibly rewarding, and just know it's like any other partnership.
Yes.
You're going to learn some more things about yourself.
I think you're spot on there. I think there's a lot of people who go into business together and then they give up because they've, have challenging experiences with their business partner. But it's just another mirror. It's another opportunity to figure out what's triggering you. How are you responding? And how do you, if anything, I look back to the last 4 years that we've worked together and been like, holy crap, I can pinpoint like the immaturity and almost like our little inner children just bickering or disagreeing about shit. And now I'm like, oh my God, I just feel it's like you're so zoomed out now and you can see the bigger picture. And it's so wonderful to just be in a place now where we're just more grounded. We are totally out of kind of like hustle, burn ourselves to the ground, like grind mode. And we just have a little bit more groundedness, maturity as a business and as people, really. And it's like, it's hard to even explain. I'm like, it's like friend, business partner, soul sister, like all in one. It's like, I don't even know what the term is. There's no term.
We create our own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure that out. We'll figure what that is next time. Maybe.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a name. Maybe it just is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Anything else you think?
I think episode 2 is in the books.
All right. Well, for whoever is out there joining, whenever you are joining, thank you for listening. This is really fun for us. So if you're getting something out of it, let us know. If you'd want to get other things out of it, and out of us, also let us know, because we'd love to hear about it. And of course, the whole reason we're doing this is to bring value to whoever's listening and also to have fun. I mean, let's be honest.
Yes. That's for us too. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Let's see if this worked on Facebook Live, and send us your questions for sure. We're on Instagram at thegreendoor.life, and we'll put all of our links and whatnot below. All right. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening.